Go ahead and ask us a question.
All right, so we have about 120 average in our Super Kids Church. At the very end, we're always pushing for altar call. We have altar call, it's beautiful. We've got 10, 20 of it in the front, and then we've got 75, 80 that just cannot figure out where to sit. What do we do with them without being distracting? I mean, you've been there, Brother Booker. Like, there's just a lot of chaos, and then there's some, we're not talking like one or two. We're talking like a whole bunch of them, and the others just don't want to pray.
Anybody, just jump in.
Activities. You could have, sometimes we'll have some games that we leave out, but you want quiet games, not to distract the ones that are praying.
I would recommend not doing coloring books. And the reason I say that, honestly, is because you almost incentivize them not to go pray, but rather to go play. And so that's what we have found. Our space is large enough that we can separate the two. Your space probably isn't. And so in that case, I don't know if you have a sound system. If you don't, I recommend going and buying a Bluetooth speaker and turning some music up kind of loud and aim it towards your kids that are praying to try to eliminate the noise and the distraction for them and just keep the rest corralled in the back. And like what Brother Ray said, try to do kind of quieter games.
One thing that we've done, and when you have that many kids, I would assume that you have staff that will be, what's the word I'm looking for, a good ratio for that. Do you guys feel like, do you have people that could be working the altars and taking care of the other kids? Or depends on the day?
So it's a smaller room.
Sure. Right. But as it being a smaller room, altar call, just the nature of altar call, all of the kids that are praying are together in one part of the room. So even if it's a smaller room, you're already kind of separating the kids that are praying because they're at the altar versus the other kids. And so one of the things that we've done at our church is we're kind of similar. We have like a fellowship hall that's not detached, but it's got an open doorway into our children's church area. So there's an obvious difference between the rooms. Sometimes we'll have, if it's a bunch of kids, we'll get some team leaders or some helpers to split them up into small groups, and we'll have discussion, like circle time, discussion with the kids about what we learned and how they can apply it to them. That way, maybe they aren't comfortable or they're not getting to that place to pray or they're not in this headspace to do that for whatever reason, they're just being jerks or whatever. You're not just letting them off the hook, but you're bringing them in and you're engaging them in another spiritual way. Maybe it's not prayer, but it's dialogue, talking to them about what they learned and different things. So we've done that with our kids before, and maybe they didn't want to pray, but they wanted to talk. We've done that. I'm not saying that's what to do, but that's something we've done before, and it's been a good alternative.
One other thing I would say is have a plan ahead of time and have teachers assigned to that plan. Like, I'm sorry, this Sunday you don't get to work the altars. You get to take care of kids, and we'll switch you out next Sunday or whatever else. But if you don't plan for it, it's absolute chaos. And you have to have some sort of plan and have teachers assigned to that ahead of time so they know very clearly exactly what they're doing and what when we do like junior camp, we'll have a bunch of kids in one little room and same ratios like that. And you have a signal, so like typically at junior camp, they'll put a hat over the speaker mic or something like that. Whatever that signal is to let those teachers know, okay, now is your time to go take care of kids.
If I could add, a lot of the times it's not a distraction to the kid as much as it is a distraction to us. So we got to learn to just work through that and trust the teachers to handle the situation, and you just focus on praying with the kids. Kids could pray, and there could be like a tornado going on around them. Their kids are very forgiving, so something to consider.
I do want to
follow up your question with a question for Brother Bradshaw. I like what you said about don't incentivize them not to pray. I'm curious how you draw that line at your church.
Practice.
Well, I mean, like, what do you do?
like find out the things that they enjoy doing, but also the things that is not going to keep them from the altar. So like I said, coloring books for us is we just couldn't do it because the kids were like, I want to go color, I don't want to pray, and so we had to take that out. And so instead of using coloring books, we would gather them together and we would play hopscotch. We would just tape it off on the floor and we'd play a quick game of hopscotch. You know, and our space, unfortunately, it's large enough. I say unfortunately, I mean like fortunately for us, but unfortunately for other people because they don't have that same space that we have now. Since we have the old sanctuary, we have the space that we can do that and not be super distracting because we still have, a building that's this size right here that is our sanctuary for children's church, and we still have the sound system, we still have all of that installed. And so we didn't always have that. We used to be in a gym, and if you sneezed, and everybody in the gym could hear you because it just reverberated. And so when we were in that space, yes, it was utter chaos. It was hard to have children praying without distractions, so we bought a sound system, installed it, and we just drowned them out. I mean, for lack of a better word of saying it, they could play, and you couldn't hear a cannon go off in there because we just had it so loud that it wouldn't distract the other kids. But like what Brother Strada said, kids are very resilient, very resilient. You can stop a kid right in the middle of praying, talk to them, and then get right back to praying again, and they can just pick back up. And so it is more distracting to us than it is to them.
I would like to add one more thing. I know we kind of all have something to say about this, but the atmosphere of the altar should be the loudest thing in the room.
Yes.
Altar music is always the loudest. We blare it for a few reasons. One reason, we want the kids to feel comfortable to be able to pray as loud as they need to. And so that way, when it's quiet, it's really hard for kids to pray because they feel so self-conscious about the words that they're saying. So we blare the music as loud as possible, and we tell all of the staff, we need to pray loud. And the kids know that we need to pray loud. So that way, anything that's going on in the back, they couldn't even notice it.
All right, any other question, or do you have a follow-up to that, sis? All right, other question over here. And you can address it to a specific speaker maybe, or to the panel as a whole.
It's probably more for the panel. Brother, I don't want to single anybody out because you guys are all probably going to be knowledgeable on this, but from the perspective of someone who does not have a bus ministry or bus kids at their church, how do you integrate bus kids into your children's church service without making them feel uncomfortable or singled out in some sort of way? Specifically, the very first time that they come.
What is the experience of a first time visit? I'm sorry? So what is the experience of a first time visitor? Sunday school.
When we have visitors, typically they're people that, in our experience so far, they're people that have either been there or coming with someone that's already in the church, so they're somewhat familiar with everything that goes on. Maybe they know some of the kids that are already there, but for the bus kids that we're planning on having, they're not going to know anybody, and they're not even going to be familiar with this atmosphere.
So who picked them up?
Well, we're going
Say you picked them up.
Yes.
So you've established a relationship with that child. So they know you. They'll be with you. And in the instance of Sister Bradshaw and I, we have our own youth group. We have 5 children. And so our children, I know, right? So our children go on outreach with us, right? And so anytime we go anywhere, especially when it comes to knocking doors, as a man, I try to have a woman or a child with me at all times. And that's just because a creeper man walking up and knocking on your door and asking if he can pick your children up on a bus. You see what I'm saying? But if I have a woman or a child with me, it's okay in that instance. And so for us, our children go with us on outreach, and my children establish a relationship with that child. And now I'm going to utilize my children in the ministry, and I'm going to have them hook up with that kid when that kid comes on Sunday and make them feel as welcome as we could possibly make them. And my child will slide up next to them during worship service, during altar call, and my child will help make that a more inviting atmosphere for them so they do not feel like they're such a sore thumb.
Yeah, and I think beyond even that, if it's not your children, it's whoever's responsible for that route really is responsible for making sure that the entire thing from start to finish is the experience for the child, right? And that would include on the way to church, it's not just a ride to church. You've got that time, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, to start instilling in the kids what to expect, setting the expectations, setting the atmosphere, whether it's with songs or, I think all of our routes, we've got some clear rules too that they cover, just like we cover rules in Sunday school and how you respect the house of God and how you do different things, obviously on their level, at their appropriateness. But it's part of that, running that route and building that route is engaging the kids from the time that they get on the bus all the way to the end of the service. It's a part of it. Like, you teach them as you go. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, you incorporate it as part of the experience. Here's how we're going to do this. Here's what to expect.
Hey, brother, if I could add, my first time in Sunday school, coming from a charismatic church, Sister Karen Pound got her son Josh to sit next to me in church. My head was completely buzzed, but the bangs, okay? I had a funny haircut. I had a really bad speech impediment. He didn't have to be my friend, but so there may be kids in your Sunday school, either your personal kids or maybe someone that you can say, hey, would you mind sitting next to him and being his friend today? You may, have that maybe preset. And then as a teacher, when we're having new bus kids coming in and out all the time, I'm gonna be sensitive when we're doing like a sword drill. I'm not gonna pit the Bible quizzer against that brand new bus kid for a sword drill. That's just not fair. It's just gonna embarrass the bus kid and he's not gonna want to come back. So I will try to pick it fair. He wants to be involved. He raised his hands. He wants to do the sword drill. I could foresee how that is gonna go. I'm gonna put him against someone that may be a little bit more fair. So just being mindful, you don't ever want to embarrass. And looking back, to me, starting Sunday school, I'm thankful for Josh sitting next to me. We're best friends still to this day. So yeah.
One thing we do is we try to practice this in the church in general, but anytime there's a kid that's new on the bus, we walk him in and I introduce him to someone. Hey, so-and-so, this is my friend Kyle. It's his first time today. Can you show him around and show him where we get breakfast? Can you show him where the games are? And there's some that are shy and they don't want to do that, but then I try to lead them to a game and introduce them to someone, and then they end up making a friend the same way, like Brother Julian was saying. They become friends with somebody and then that's it. They're melted into the pot.
And make a special plan to reach both first-time guests and challenge kids that have been in church their whole life. It's not as easy to implement as it is for me to say that, but make it. My purpose today is to reach both somehow, or at least in one point of the lesson, I'm going to hit these different people that have different experiences in God, and you can do it. Same way the pastor can do it. He can reach a first-time guest, and he can also reach a seasoned saint that's been in church their whole life. It's not it's not easy, but we can do it. You can do it, especially if you do it with purpose.
I have a question. Does Apostolic Sunday School have an app, or maybe you're going to come up with an app soon?
We do not.
It's been one of the dreams forever. That's cool. Yes, there's all kind. Yes, it's on the list.
Hey, that's cool though.
Yeah, one day. Any other questions? If we don't, that's okay. We can move on. Oh, there's one in the back.
The search bar that you have for your object lessons. I don't know if you still offer that.
Yeah.
If this is the one you're referring to, so I was having trouble finding myself on my own site certain things that fit the class that I was trying to teach. Like, hey, I have 30 minutes to prep. I really don't have a lot of time this week, so I need an easy one. And so there's an object lesson advanced search, and you can say, I only have this much time. I only have the ability to shop local. I can't go online. It has to be, so you have like 10 different options, and it even has one called wow factor, and that's a complete judgment call on my part. One is like meh, or one is like, wow, that's amazing. And so you can slide that slider wherever you want, and if any one of those fits all those criteria, it'll come up.
What was great about that was he realized that at 9:30 last Saturday night, and by 11 o'clock, he had it up there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's somewhat helpful. All right, any other questions? If not, we'll end this. Okay, there's one more. Roseberry.
Recruiting. How do you recruit? What's the most effective way? How do you get people interested and keep them?
Hey, I'm sitting by two of my recruiters right here. They just threw me in it. They just got me in it. They say, hey, you want to do it? Or they said, have you ever thought about doing Sunday school before? I said, no. They said, just come and check it out. That's the line you need to memorize. Just come and check it out. And we know what that's going to do. It's going to hook them. Same thing with bus ministry. I had someone recently, hey, I'm going to just help for a little bit. I said, okay. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm joining. They're joining. They're full time. So.
G-Rap has a special pair of pliers that he uses to start peeling people's fingernails back when they say no. This is like start
Constantly be on the hunt.
Yeah.
Constantly. I've told a bunch of people this, but whatever job I'm assigned to in the church, you can assign me to any job you want me to assign, but I am going to be looking for my replacement. Because there's always going to be something else to do and something more to do. But if I can't do it all by myself, and you can't do it all by yourself. But if you're constantly on the hunt, hey, you should help me. And sometimes it's nice, like Brother Julian said, oh, you should come check it out. And sometimes it's like, hey, what are you doing right now? Oh, you're coming with me. But that's how I got into Sunday school. The way I got into Sunday school is I showed up, they needed somebody to be security. That was me. I had no desire, I had no interest in Sunday school. I did bus routes and I loved it, but Sunday school had zero interest for me. And I came to be security, and after 3 weeks, I was helping sing songs. And after about 4 weeks, I was teaching, and we're here ever since. So however you get them involved, most people will fall in love with it and they'll stick.
Yeah, so we use the check it out a lot. We have quite a bit of staff. We rotate through, and we have we'll have them come in and just be a part this Sunday, and they're hooked. Pretty much right away. And a lot of times they have a misconception of, well, I'm not an actor, I can't do all that stuff. But I come in or have them come in and show them there's all kinds of opportunities here that you can do.
And this is an interesting sideline to that is we were heavy recruiters. But over time, it's got easier and easier because more and more people have gotten involved, and it just, like when you drive up on a Sunday morning, the first thing you see is Sunday school. Right. You see the red carpet, you see the giant flappy man, you see stuff happening, buses pulling in, so it's in your face. You can't avoid seeing it. So there's always people saying, what is going on over there? And it has developed a culture over time, and this took many years, almost decades to develop, to the point where now we're not recruiting for bus ministry and Sunday school. We have more than we need on bus ministry especially. How many people are in bus right now?
I was like 50.
50 for 7 buses. Do the math. We don't need that many, but we want them. It's part of the culture. When they turn 12, almost every kid in the church says, I want to join bus ministry. And we're not turning them down. We will gladly take them. And so it's become just being part of the church. You join bus. Nobody said that, but it's the way it's developed. So just kind of happened over time. And then those bus ministry, they want to teach Sunday school when they turn a certain age.
And have entry-level jobs for people to come into. Don't just throw them in front of the classroom. Hey, you're leading the song today. Yeah. Good luck. You have entry-level jobs that people can get their feet wet in, and then they'll find their level.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. In our class specifically, we do what's called, and in the curriculum we're writing, we call it segments, pieces, chunks. So if someone doesn't show up and say, hey, you have to teach this class for an hour, we say, you have 6 minutes and you'll have someone with you. You can do that. 6 minutes and you have a week to prepare for it. That's something people can wrap their heads around. And so we can integrate them one little piece at a time until they get their feet wet, until they're comfortable doing it on their own, and then move them into bigger and bigger segments and pieces until finally they're able to take it on their own. Is there another, you said a question?
So, Sister Becky. Peggy, sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you, but just to answer this question too, one thing that we've done in our church is have the Sunday school provide a dinner after service on a Sunday night, and they come back and it's not like a sit-down formal dinner, but we have everything decorated in the fellowship hall, like crazy fun decorations, balloons, totally geared towards kids. Maybe it's the theme that we're building for the next quarter. Like mad scientist stuff, we'll have table decorations for like, beakers and crazy stuff, and the food's themed and everything. And we have like this party, this recruitment party, and like cast a vision for our children's ministry, share a testimony of our bus route, share a testimony of the progress we've made in kids' church, tell them the needs that we have currently, and just make a pitch to the church in general, say, hey, look, we need help in here. And that way you're giving them something and kind of giving them, like, when it's front and center, people want to be in the front and center. not in a mean way, but I'm just saying they want to be where the party's at. And so you could throw a recruitment party and not call it a recruitment party. Just call it, hey, this dinner is being sponsored by the children's ministry of our church. And in your mind, it's a recruitment party. You can cast a vision and share the testimonies, inspire people, and have a sign-up sheet at the door. So, hey, if you're interested, give us your information. We're going to follow up with you and get you plugged in. So, it's an idea. Sorry, Sister Peggy.
Thank you. Out of curiosity, Brother Booker, you had mentioned about your buses. In Sacramento, we were not allowed to use our buses anymore because of all the California regulations. Do you guys have the electric buses, or how did you guys address that?
No, we're in the same state. So we have to fight the same battles. So we have two buses, two full-size 172 passenger, 184 passenger. The state has limited us to 1,000 miles a year on those buses. 1,000 for the entire year, 1,000 miles. So that means 20 miles a week. That means 10 miles out, 10 miles back, and we can do that. So we have developed for those two routes specifically, they only travel within a range of 10 miles. So we can run within 1,000. Now, if we go 1 mile over, they will red tag the bus and we can never register it again in the state of California. So we are very careful about that, especially when it gets near the end of the year, we are on that. We have a big shuttle, a diesel shuttle, but it is past the 2010 restrictions. So if you have a vehicle past 2010 that uses the DEF fluid, it's just what they're for the environment. If you have that, you can run them indefinitely. So you could, if you had enough money, you could have a fleet of full-size buses. It's all about money. So we have some beaters. I mean, those things are bad. They just run 1,000. And then we got a couple gas buses, but they're smaller. It's like 20 passenger. We have 3 of those. I think an 18 and 220s, four gas. And we got them just in the craziest way possible. Literally, a public school district called and said, do you want one for free? I can't tell you how to fall into that. It just happened. Someone knew someone in our church, and so we got it. Well, then that same one called us back and said, would you like 2 more, but you have to pay for them? Well, they gave us a price that we couldn't afford, so we offered them half, and they took it. So, anyway, we're always on the hunt. We're looking. So gas is the answer, gas vehicles, and if you go diesel, it has to be 2010 or newer.
So if you're in California, don't let this conversation scare you, because our church has diesel, and I have been getting registration notices from the DMV. That's before, like, it's not, according to the law, it's not really supposed to even be used. And I keep getting registration renewal notices from the DMV, and I go pay the renewal, and they just keep sending me the tags. And so I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do their job for them. I know this is taboo, sorry. I called the CHP office. Listen, yeah, right. I called the CHP. No, listen, I called the CHP Because I asked the DMV, I keep getting these registration renewals, and you guys are letting me do this, but like, I told them. And they said, well, I asked them, I said, so who is responsible for enforcing this? Where's enforcement? And they said, well, that's the CHP. They'll do an audit or whatever. So I called our CHP office, and I told them what the DMV said. And the guy, I have the officer's name in my notes at the church. He laughed and said, well, tell them if they want it done, they can do it. And so it's like this back and forth between the CHP and the DMV, at least in my area, in my county. That's the way it was, which Kern County is kind of like a rootin' tootin' cowboy county anyway. But DMV doesn't want to own up to it. CHP doesn't want to own up to it. They're giving me the tags, sending me the registration renewal. I'm just going to keep doing it until they tell me, until they shut it.
For us, it's the air board. The air board's the one that.
Okay, so, yeah, well, they're.
You're over the radar.
We did lose 2 buses because of that law, though. So I mean, it did hit us, but most vehicles now, the vans, the mid-sized buses, even our youth shuttle bus, it's a commercial C license with the passenger endorsement. It's a very easy license to get compared to the class B, that you need to get. When I got my license, I got the Class B with the passenger endorsement and air brakes, just because we had the big buses at the time. My wife recently did it. She was honestly like, we didn't know the process to get the Class C. It's so easier, like so much easier. So if you look into doing the Class C, it's just the Class C, the general knowledge of the commercial, the passenger endorsement, and I feel like I'm missing one. Well, then you gotta get your medical done, and you could test in those little vans, and you could drive a mid-size to even the limousine-size buses as long as it's under a certain weight, which most of the buses are. So it's not a very hard process, and it's even when you do the driving portion and the engine, they don't make you check the whole. You don't have to memorize the belt, the sizes, the movement, all this stuff. Like they don't care when it comes to commercials. It's easier test.
I don't want to beat this to death, but a couple years ago, Brother Julian was not involved with bus ministry. He was not driving a bus. He wasn't doing any of that. And he was sitting right over there. And someone was talking about bus ministry, and he said, I was sitting there thinking, yeah, some of these people in our church should get their license. And he's looking around thinking, yeah, he should get it, and he should get it. And he said, God talked to him, if I get this right, and said, no, you need to go get it. So if you're wondering who in your church needs to go get their license, it could be you. And I'm being serious. It's not that hard. It's not that expensive. And then you can go pick up people too. So it's a great thing to have. Brother Danny Geraldo is like a hero. In 30 days, from start to finish, he had his Class B with air brakes, passenger endorsement, everything. Within 30 days from start to finish. It can be done. All right, any other questions? Brother Baker's going to have to catch a flight, so thank you for coming, Brother Baker. All right, one more piece. Second row here. I think we got one more minute if I saw my time right.
Okay, so going back to the staff question, what if they say they want to help and they do want to be there, but they have a hard time getting to practice on time, or sometimes they don't even come to practice at all, or they just show up late? How do you go about that?
Who do you have in mind specifically?
I'm
kidding, I'm joking, don't say that.
So, how bad do they really want to be there? Because if they say they want to be there, they're going to make time to be there, right? I mean, Pastor says all the time, you're going to make time to do the things that you want to do, right? If you want to be at church, guess what? You're going to be at church. If you say you want to be at church and you don't show up, you really don't want to be at church because something else has taken priority over that. So that's kind of a fine line that you walk, right? Because you need the help, but at the same time, you need reliable help. And so maybe find something that they can do that they don't need to be there for practice. Hey, can you just watch that door and make sure the kids aren't running in and out? Hey, can you go be a hall monitor? I mean, it's involved, right? You say you want to be involved. And a lot of times when people say they want to be involved, they want to be the ones that are behind the pulpit, right? Because that's who gets seen, right? Or doing the object lesson. But if they say they really want to be involved, I mean, there's more than one ministry in your church, right? So if you say you're called to the ministry, but your idea of ministry is just the pulpit ministry, I'm sorry, but cleaning the windows to me is a ministry. Somebody has to do it, right? And so if I'm going to be called to my ministry, I'm going to be the best at my ministry that I can be. And if that includes just scrubbing the toilets down, I'm going to be the best toilet scrubber that my church has. Nobody's going to out-scrub that toilet, right? And that's the mentality that we should have in our respective ministries, whatever your ministry is. That just know that is a ministry. The church could not do it without you. And so find something that person can do. If they can't show up for practice, cool. It doesn't take practice to corral a kid out of the hallway and bring him back into the sanctuary.
So we have tried that, but what if they say, oh, I want to be a part of like the object lesson or do the call and response, and they just don't show up for practice?
I was going to say, we have an expectation for bus ministry anyway, that if you don't come to outreach, you don't ride the bus Sunday morning. You know, so we kind of sometimes loosely enforce it. So if they don't show up, they can't be used. I'd rather have someone who's doing outreach sitting on the buses and going out, because bus ministry is not Sunday morning. It's Saturday, midweek outreach, all that stuff. So honestly, you sometimes just have to set an expectation, like, sorry, you weren't here, we can't use you. It's just set the expectation, but they knew it before then, you know.
Yeah,
and that's not a. Oh, go ahead.
Setting the clear expectation, like this is who we are, this is what we, and if you just can't because your life doesn't operate that way and you can't meet that expectation, then this isn't the place for you. This isn't the ministry for you. But here's the options that do fit in having those other things that are available.
And it doesn't have to be a permanent call, you know. If they don't show up, then they can't be used. Well, that's not permanently, but if we give you the object lesson or the call and response or whatever it is, this is how we know that we can depend on you to be there and be in alignment with what we're doing that Sunday, is you show up to rehearsal. If you're not at rehearsal, you're not doing the thing, you know. I think we could apply that to almost every other thing. Like if we're singing on the platform for praise and worship, if you're not at rehearsal, you're probably going to be replaced by somebody who can be there, right? So I mean, it's holding to that expectation and then giving them hope. Like, look, if you do well, you'll be accepted. You know, don't kill your brother with a stone.
Yeah, I think everybody that's part of scheduling in Sunday school, whether you mean to do it or not, you schedule according to their history. So you're like, well, they can't do that.
No, they're not.
Yeah, they won't be here. And so after a while, they're not being used. And if they ask why, I'll give them a clear answer. I'm sorry, it's because I can't rely on you. I don't even know if you'll be there.
And there are like resources. You can do it on a spreadsheet or like Planning Center or something like that. You can use it for a lot of these things. And you can track. Hey, you were scheduled to do this day and you didn't show up. And you're scheduled to do this practice this day and you didn't show up. And so you give somebody a list like, these were the expectations you didn't meet. So we can't have you do this, but we can have you do this. Be faithful in this, and we'll come back we'll try this again.
Yes.
Because you don't want to kick somebody out permanently because of their lives, what they're doing, but you also can't ruin your whole Sunday school because somebody's not coming to practice. So you try to find that balance, but give people concrete things that you can show them. Hey, these 3 Sundays, you didn't show up for practice, so we can't use you for that anymore, but I can use you for these things. Be faithful in these things. We'll try this again.
There you go.
And maybe just help them understand the impact of missing practice, because it's not just about them, but it's about how that ties into the whole flow of the rest of the service. That's why you have the practice. That's why everybody shows up, is because it's about the bigger picture in the entire thing. And when that piece is missing, you're lost. Like the whole thing can crumble because one piece is missing. We saw it with the cup stacking last night. I mean, one piece, you pull it out and it crumbles. So you got to rely on it.
Absolutely. All right, it is 4:20, and that wraps up. If you have any more questions, just send them to info@socalcommission.com or info@Apostolic Sunday School, and we will, if you have it targeted to a certain speaker, we'll get that to them, or we will answer it as a group.